One thing I'll start off discussing today, this interesting article I found online, which I'll scroll through momentarily. Ahead of SpaceX moon mission, billionaire Yosaka Maezawa sells a 2.3 billion stake in his fashion company to Yahoo Japan. I didn't even know Yahoo had a Japan, uh, you know, branch or whatever. So this dude apparently has been working with SpaceX for a while to help make the rocket that's going to go around the moon and eventually to Mars. I think that's pretty cool. Isaka Maezawa plans to sell a 30% stake in his online fashion retail company, Zozu, to Yahoo Japan. As part of the $3.7 billion tender offer, Maezawa will resign and pocket $2.3 billion. During a press conference, Maezawa reportedly said that one of his main reasons for departing Zozo was to make time to train for a 2023 voyage around the moon with Starship, a new rocket system planned by SpaceX. Maezawa also indicated that he planned to launch on a less ambitious space flight around the Earth before his Dear Moon mission with SpaceX, which was founded by the tech mogul Elon Musk. So a fashion mogul and a tech mogul. SpaceX is working feverishly in South Texas and Florida to develop and test launch prototypes of the system. Once fully complete, Starship may stand about 400 feet tall and be fully reusable. So this guy is a key investor in SpaceX. And it says a 30% stake. I guess he'll still own some of it. As part of, There we go. It maintains a 6% stake in the company he founded. So he'll still have a 6% stake. That's pretty cool. Although he raised misgivings about how he managed the company in recent years, saying he regretted mistakes that hurt the company's bottom line. Forbes reported that he rationalized his departure in another and far more personal way. I need to prepare for his 2023 flight around the moon inside Starship. Just about 4 years from now. Maezawa also indicated he'll fly a less ambitious mission before SpaceX's privately funded circumlunar voyage. It reminds me of the article about NASA trying to work out, apparently, the electronics difficulties with our new electronics and the radiation that is around the moon. Looks like SpaceX has solved it already, or will solve it by 2023. So it was then called Big Falcon Rocket, but has since been redesigned and named Starship. However, the craft's core goals and capabilities are similar. Awesome. So this is apparently Starhopper, SpaceX's first Mars Starship prototype, hovers over its launch pad test during a test flight in Boca Chica, Texas on August 27th. It's interesting how rudimentary this prototype looks compared to how the finished designs look when they actually launch them, like when they have their launches to send up satellites to the ISS or whatever. You can see the flames coming out the bottom. Apparently this thing could stabilize itself in the air on one rocket, which is pretty cool. This reminds me of I believe it's called the Sputnik, that old satellite that was sent out, I think, by the Russians. It was like a ball with the little spokes coming out the back. Looks similar to that. If Starship is realized as envisioned by Musk, it will be roughly 400 foot tall, 200 stage steel body vehicle. It will also be the world's largest, most powerful, and paradoxically most affordable launch system because, unlike any orbital rocket class rockets today, it will be fully reusable. So that's one thing that Elon Musk apparently um, revolutionized in the rocketry field. He made his rockets reusable. It's like he made his booster engine reusable instead of having to be destroyed and just landing in the ocean over and over. Musk says he may beat NASA back to the lunar surface with Starship and launch the first humans to Mars with the system, past 100 at a time. And that's interesting that he says the first humans. Others talk about how people are already on the moon and secret space missions. I'm not sure, but I believe Stephen Greer said something to that effect. Um, these secret space programs they have from recovered extraterrestrial spacecraft. So I think that's possible. But according to the masters that met Gary Renard, humans came from Mars to Earth, so we definitely won't be the first humans there. Maybe at most the first humans there in a long time. Musk said more. It costs between $2 billion and $10 billion to develop Starship into an operational system, and that Mazeva's contributions are all going directly towards that goal. Between $2 billion and $10 billion to develop Starship to make it operational. He's paying a lot of money that would help the ship and its booster. Musk said he's ultimately paying for the average citizen to travel to other planets. He says he has no money because he uses it all immediately. So selling his stakes will give him a new influx of cash. It's ironic. He's like a billionaire, but he's in the same state as most people. No money because he spends it all. Even though, of course, he spends it on a whole lot bigger stuff. A rocket ship to Mars would be, better than like going to the movies or something. Progress is accelerating. Musk tweeted in August, later adding that it's moving along exponentially. SpaceX has two development sites for Starship, one in Boca Chica, Texas, and the second in Cocoa, Florida. So far, most of the work has occurred at the Texas launch site, where SpaceX started to build its first prototype called Starhopper in 2018. The vehicle was a test bed to prove SpaceX's new Raptor rocket engines worked on a flying vehicle. It performed a few short test launches, or hops, in April and July. They made its last air experimental launch from Texas in August. That final flight took Starhopper about 490 feet into the air before it landed on a nearby concrete pad. It's already testing these things. SpaceX is now pushing to complete two bigger, roughly 180-foot tall prototypes called Starship Mk1 and Mk2 in Texas and Florida respectively. Each should be capable of orbiting Earth to prove out and refine launch, re-entry, and landing system technologies. So as you can see, they're starting to build this Mars-capable ship in stages, first in little hops, then in little orbiting the Earth, then eventually around the Moon, then eventually Mars. Newly released FAA documents refer to this part of spaceship's development program as Phase 3. As part of that phase, Musk tweeted on August 28 that SpaceX was trying launching Starship Mk1 about 12.4 miles above Texas in October before the company attempts an orbital launch shortly thereafter. Musk added that he will provide an update on the overall Starship development program on September 28. Previously, he said he would deliver that presentation from Boca Chica, possibly to do so with a fitting backdrop. Starship Mk1 will be fully assembled by that time, by September of this year. Pretty cool. Let's look at some of these side articles that we have up in here. Texas launch site. Man, this is what it looks like at this site, where they're building this rocket at. Elon Musk is building SpaceX's Mars rockets in a tiny Texas hamlet, but getting them off the ground there may be harder than he imagined. So look at this thing, man. Starhopper, a prototype of SpaceX's Starship rocket for Mars, stands vertically at the company's facility in Boca Chica, Texas. That is neat. SpaceX, Elon Musk rocket company, has been developing a launch site in South Texas since 2014. The facility surrounds a small community called Boca Chica Village. SpaceX initially planned to launch a dozen rockets a year from the site. Instead, it is now using a private spaceport to develop and test Starship, a rocket designed to send people to Mars. But the site's location, sinking soil, windy weather, and residents may challenge SpaceX's plans. So it says there's a mirror-like skin. Maria, a 64-year-old woman who spends most of her life in Alaska but now lives in Boca Chica, Texas, so she finds herself gazing at the vehicle while juicing oranges or making breakfast. I get to look at this shiny sunrise, this orange sun glistening off a rocket ship, she said. It's like a picture book for a child, you know? You turn a page and there's the rocket ship. It's pretty neat. SpaceX's experimental stainless steel Starhopper rocket ship at Texas. A person is shown at the bottom for scale. So that's the person standing right there. So this thing is pretty huge. So that's the same rocket. I wonder how far they are away from it in this picture here. So it's a 60-foot tall rocket. Many future flight plans must avoid populated islands. The bay bottom mud and sands below SpaceX's site also causes dense structures and tall towers tend to sink and lean. Golf course weather is a challenge too, as SpaceX recently saw when gale force winds damaged the Starhopper. Man. Then there are the 20 or so people like the partners who live in or near Boca Chica Village. For them, the unparalleled view of the experimental rocket program, while stirring, is also foreboding. Most of us came down here because we were retired and wanted a nice, quiet place to live. Well, I guess it might not be too quiet with rockets blasting off nearby. The quiet has been broken. The area is morphing from a sleepy beach community into an industrial site and possibly an active Mars spaceport. Starhopper's first hop was so loud that it knocked off part of a window treatment inside the partner's house. The test involved one Raptor engine, though 31 are planned for the booster. Wow. The disruptive roar of rocket engines also serves as a reminder that an explosion could happen nearby. The Pointers, the Clausens, and their Boca Chica neighbors sit no more than 2 miles from SpaceX's current launch pad, likely the closest anyone on the planet lives to such a site. So, rocket in Texas. And there's a slight map showing where Boca Chica is. So this is Louisiana right here. This is probably Houston. This is probably San Antonio. So it seems like it's right on the edge of Mexico. So this is the Mexico line right here. Right there on the edge, right near Mexico, which makes sense. He wants to get closer towards the ocean. In 2014, with the support of county and state officials, SpaceX went public with its plan to convert these plots into a spaceport. By then, the company had bought or leased nearly 100 acres of land. SpaceX has since acquired dozens of additional acres. Right. Launch site here, beach there, village. SpaceX facilities and properties. So they weren't joking when they say this surrounds this village. It's like a village is inside a spaceport almost. Musk and SpaceX are developing a stainless steel rocket ship called Starship. Stainless steel rocket ship. That's interesting. Musk hopes to establish a self-sustaining Martian base by 2050, and Starship is essential to that plan. This is all part of a long-term plan of having a Martian base by 2050. Musk is making some serious moves. The largest and most affordable space flight system ever built, because it'll be fully reusable. Big multi-million-dollar rocket parts wouldn't get discarded as in most launch systems today. Achieving this level of reusability, Musk says, would undercut the per ounce's cost of launching payloads on SpaceX's own go-to rocket Falcon 9 by a factor of 5 to 10. From a business standpoint, the ramifications of a functional Starship would be sweeping and staggering. SpaceX could use the system to speed up its effort to remake the internet by developing hundreds of telecommunication satellites in a single launch. By deploying. Starship would also make NASA's forthcoming monster rocket, called Space Launch System, seem archaic. Plus, the economics of the Starship threaten to bankrupt some of SpaceX's biggest private competitors. Biggest private competitors. The economics of the Starship threatens to bankrupt some of SpaceX's biggest private competitors. So, other people about to go bankrupt. Apparently because they don't have the reusability of Musk. Sounds about right. But the system is not yet real. Musk said it could take between $2 billion and $10 billion to get there, though an aerospace industry analyst told Business Insider that upper range could easily balloon to $20 billion if SpaceX hits major setbacks. Hopefully he doesn't. Awesome. So this is a view of the ship apparently from somebody's yard. Maria and Ray Pointer's yard offers a window into SpaceX's efforts to develop Mars' launch system called Starship. This photo shows the Starhopper prototype on January 10, 2019. Imagine having a rocket ship in your backyard. Wow. So since 2014, this thing started. Here's a view of the location. Septic tank, machine well workshop, stores and parts, local office, water tower, national well, security gate guard building, liquid oxygen storage, helium storage, lighting tower, concrete pads, launch pads, flame duct, fuel storage, nitrogen storage. SpaceX kicked off construction by drilling for bedrock, which could help anchor a dense launch pad. It never found any bedrock. There was no way for the company to have known this prior to purchasing the land. SpaceX's earliest Mars rocket prototype called Starhopper sits on a launch pad after its first launch on April 2019. Even that thing is quite huge. It looks smaller than that previous photo. This seems to be the same one that was here. Looks quite small in that picture, but that thing is huge. Let me find that picture again, if I can. There we go. I think that's pretty huge. There's a man standing right to the side of it. You can see how huge it is. Neat. Concrete pilings can support large structures in soft soil, and SpaceX's construction plans called for hundreds of them. But John Hancock, who led a wetland reclamation project in the area in 2006, says he was flabbergasted that anyone tried to build anything large near Boca Chica Beach. Where the pad is, that's all bay bottom. There is no bottom, he said. Back in 2006, there was a tower that was built on Padre Island. Before it was ever occupied, it started leaning, and they had to blow the thing up. Man. SpaceX eventually decided to surcharge or compact the ground at its launch site. Contractors dumped about 310,000 cubic yards of soil, enough to cover a football field with 13 stories of dirt. The company said that the move created ground that was more suitable for dense foundations, but added that the process delayed the company's schedule. There's an explosion of a Falcon 9. The setbacks. The losses of Falcon 9 rockets in 2015 and 16 also drew SpaceX's time and resources away from Boca Chica. As a result of all these challenges, the company's original plan and schedule for the site went into the waste bin. So, even with these challenges, exploding rockets, still getting things worked out, they still ended up succeeding. One rocket road, they call it. Nice. It takes about 8 minutes to reach low Earth orbit. And on their way, vehicles reach tremendous speeds. Within a minute of launch, they can exceed the speed of sound, and a minute or so later, they reach speeds 5 times that fast. This means that if something goes wrong, a failed launch can send high-speed wreckage raining back down. Even when the rocket mission succeeds, falling rocket parts still pose a risk. To avoid putting any people in danger, orbital-class rockets launched from SpaceX's test site will have several unique obstacles to avoid in their flight path. Which is again why they go so far south to fly out the ocean, drop stuff there. Pretty cool. A map shows potential rocket pads from Boca Chica. So they can go in between these land masses and avoid dropping stuff on the ground there. Pretty cool. Well, as much as possible. You seem pretty close to some islands up there, but generally they seem to be avoiding things. Falling vehicle components and payloads from failed launch attempts or debris from their aerodynamic or command breakup can damage aircraft in flight and structures on the ground, as well as injure individuals. In addition, some debris may detonate on impact, producing a blast hazard, or may act as firebrands to initiate fires on impact. SpaceX's test hopper, an experienced stainless steel ship, after it was built in Texas, left, and an illustration of the vehicle. A Persian is shown at the bottom to provide a sense of scale. The right one, of course, looks cooler with the smooth outside. Reminds me of those ships in Star Wars movies, the real Star Wars movies, with when George Lucas was there, those stainless steel ships that they flew in. Part of South Texas, like Arrow City, were inundated by Hurricane Beulah on October 8, 1967. I'll look at one more article. Elon Musk says SpaceX could land on the moon in 2 years. A NASA executive says we will partner with them and we'll get there faster. The company can pull it off. Elon Musk says SpaceX may land cargo on the moon in 2 years, then people a year or two after that using the company's forthcoming spaceship rocket system. NASA guy thinks there's a slim chance, but I believe in Elon Musk. I think he can do it. We're not committed to any one contractor. If our current contractors can't meet this objective, then we'll find ones that will. That's from Vice President Mike Pence. It may literally be easier. Meanwhile, SpaceX is sending signals back to the Trump administration and NASA in kind. It may literally be easier to just land Starship on the moon than to try to convince NASA that we can. Nice. It may literally be easier to just land Starship on the moon than to try to convince NASA that we can. Here, look, here's a picture of a landing right there. That might be the better way to do it. So if SpaceX can do it, NASA may end up partnering with SpaceX. He added this and about us doing it instead about America doing it. He's an American company. I'd love to partner with him and get that done. Pretty good stuff. Well, I just wanted to talk about that briefly. Perhaps everyone alive today, well, that's not everyone alive today, but anyone around my age alive today may be able to take a trip to the moon or Mars sometime in the near future. This would be pretty cool. So, why don't you go ahead and comment? Looks like there's no live chatters at the moment. Or maybe y'all can make some comments on the video about any thoughts or ideas y'all have about SpaceX going to the Starship rocket and going around the Earth in orbit, then to the moon, and then eventually to Mars. What are y'all thoughts of how soon we can be on the moon and on Mars as private individuals? And if you have any ideas for a topic for next week, let me know. Make a comment, send an email, or what have you. So thanks to all of those who watch, and I hope you have a nice day.